Hello, this is Greg Salyer, and welcome to The Sacred, Space, Time, and Ecstasy.
The first possible definition of the sacred is that it is the opposite of the profane. So writes historian of religion Mircea Eliade in his important work, The Sacred and the Profane. This seemingly simple dichotomy is anything but, especially when we consider the implications for the study of religion. Eliade's definition draws directly from Rudolf Otto's understanding of the holy other, that experience of awe and fear that is at the core of religion. One thing that makes the other different is that it is not profane. Here's another word that can benefit from etymology. Profanum is a Latin word that simply meant the area in front of the temple and did not imply, as it did later, a defilement of the sacred. Rather, it was simply not sacred. And today, we would use the word mundane to describe it. The sacred, then, is the opposite of the mundane or the everyday. The other of Otto's holy other is something that is outside of our everyday experience. In fact, it is not just something, but something special and unique. Here we might turn to William James' definition of religion to understand the origin of the sacred. James wrote, quote, "Were one asked to characterize the life of religion in the broadest and most general terms possible, one might say that it consists of the belief that there is an unseen order, and that our supreme good lies in harmoniously adjusting ourselves thereto," unquote. What makes the sacred different from the everyday is that it is an experience of this unseen order, a breakthrough of the other into the profane.
When the unseen order appears in the everyday, the space there becomes a religious site. Natural features, such as the Grand Canyon, or a built environment, such as a cathedral, may occupy sacred space. Sometimes a building is built over or around a natural object, such as the Kaaba in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Evidence suggests that the black stone of the Kaaba was worshipped well before the advent of Islam, and now it is the most sacred site for Muslims and the object of their pilgrimage or Hajj. Whatever the structure of the sacred site, the space inside of it is by definition other, the realm of the divine or the unseen order. Since it is the opposite of the mundane, different rules apply. Only certain people may enter at certain times, and highly specific behavior must be exhibited. A good analogy and even example of sacred space is a playing field or court. The court is clearly marked with lines. Only certain people may enter at specific times, and the appropriate behavior is both arbitrary and rigidly enforced. Just try and pick up a basketball on a court and run without dribbling, and you will see something about the nature of sacred space. In sacred space, the boundaries and borders are especially important, since they are the contact with the profane, and as such, they must carefully be guarded to prevent profane crossover. We will see that appropriate entry and exit is regulated by ritual. When one is inside sacred space, time flows differently, and like everything else sacred, it is marked by its difference from the everyday world. The most striking difference of sacred time is that it is reversible. Some religious rituals are designed to transport the participants back to the creation of the world, to a time when all was in order before disharmony occurred. Healing rituals are especially noted for this use of sacred time, since they return the sufferer to the past when he was whole. Festivals, too, assume that there's a certain permanence to the event that can be accessed at particular points during mundane time. In some sense, then, sacred time does not flow. It is not part of history, and when we enter sacred space, we also leave the constraints of historical time and move into mythical time, where all is one continuous present. For example, the Catholic Mass is a ritual that transcends mundane time to enter sacred time, where the body and blood of Jesus Christ are present now, not in the past. For other religions, sacred time is cyclical, and the world is recreated every spring when life comes anew from the earth. In those religions, it is the cycle itself that is permanent and unchanging, even if change occurs within the circle. While these notions of sacred space and time sound abstract and even imaginary, they are actually part of everyone's experience to some degree. For example, musicians often enter sacred time and space during performances where they play beyond their abilities and marvel at what they are suddenly capable of. Athletes often report being in the zone, where time and space change and make extraordinary performances possible. Michael Jordan described it as the basket looking like a big bucket, and everyone else on the court appearing to move much more slowly than him. Mothers may well experience sacred space and time during birth. What these experiences have in common is the sense of being outside of oneself, and some people even describe themselves as looking down upon their experience from another place. This, too, is a religious experience called ecstasy. Like many religious terms, its meaning is different in popular use, where it simply means a special kind of joy. Ecstasy is a Greek word that is a combination of ek, which means outside, and histanai, which means to stand. This etymology aligns perfectly with the sense of standing outside of oneself described by those who are in the flow or the zone, that is, those in sacred time. To be in sacred time and space, then, is often to be in a state of ecstasy. Because of its otherness, its difference from the mundane, the sacred is also, by definition, ephemeral. It cannot last. If we lived in sacred time and space continually, then it would become mundane again. To achieve its full expression, the sacred must be rare and unusual. At the same time, adherents of world religions keep reaching for sacred space and time. And Eliade claims that all people want to live in the sacred always. Some world mythologies go so far as to depict the sacred as ultimately real and the mundane as unreal, thereby turning on its head our understanding of the world. For example, the Buddha taught that the world we see every day is Maya, or illusion, and the only reality is the undifferentiated one. As you can see, the nature of religion is about the nature of the world, and we have vastly different ideas of what that is, but in all of them, there is a concept of the sacred.